And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment of Cowboy State Politics Live. From very high above all the puerile and vacuous forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone, and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Thursday, and it is a gigantic day at Cowboy State Politics. Today, just a minute ago, the Cowboy State Politics podcast achieved 300,000 downloads.
That's great! That's not
You couple that with the very first live call-in on the show yesterday. It has been a very, very, very big week on Cowboy State Politics. And I have to tell you, my friends, it's all thanks to you. I wouldn't be sitting here behind this microphone doing what I do if it weren't for the amazing Cowboy State Politics audience. So thank you very, very much. Thank you for what you're doing. And in commemoration of this, I think we better have a couple of, historical sound bites. So for example,
hello! Welcome to So Addicting!
Of course, we can't forget that. Now, that's kind of a new one. That's Jackie Van Mark. There's, let's see here. Oh, yeah. Who could forget about this one?
Oh, I think you got to stop and take a look at what you're doing here. I speak against this because it kind of reminds me of that fairy tale, Cinderella.
Oh, shut up.
First of all, it's a red herring. It's stupid as all get out.
Well, welcome to Cowboy State Politics, my friends, and thank you very much for listening. I can't thank you enough. Today is a really big day, and actually it's been a really big week, and I'm super, super excited. So I think in commemoration of that, a little bit later, we're going to open up the phone lines, and we're going to actually see if we can get some calls from some of our listeners. So if you want to be part of the program, the call-in number is 307-374-8989. That's 307-374-8989. Give you a little bit to get into the program, and then we'll take some calls. We'll see if see what you guys want to talk about. So anyway, on with the show. In our first story, there's a great piece on the cow pie. Well, I don't know if it's a great piece, but Harriet Hageman's comments are really great. In fact, the title of the story is Hageman says that people in the path of the wildfires can thank the feds and their bad policies. And this is absolutely the truth. Now, living in Wyoming, many of you probably spend a great deal of time outdoors, and I do too, up at our cabin. And when I was growing up, I remember that there was a constant amount of logging that was going on. Now, keep in mind, this is before 1994 that I'm talking about, but a lot of logging, and it was kind of a major thing, a normal thing, I should say. And they'd have clear cutting, and that alternated, and then in a given year, you'd clear cut here one year, and then over here the next year, and it's just kind of checkerboarded. And it was timber management. Well, when Bill Clinton came into office, he established this no roads rule, no motorized travel rule. And the whole idea was to create these wilderness areas and and without logging, without clearing out all the fuel in there, I mean, it is just a tinderbox waiting to happen. And I think Harriet is exactly right. What you're seeing right now is a direct result of the bad policies of the Bill Clinton administration. Well, every Democrat president, really. There's this stupid idea that if we can preserve what's there, and by preserve, they don't mean, keep things nice. They mean keep things without any human touch. This is exactly what you're seeing with the Rock Springs management plan. They don't want anybody to be involved in, they don't want to have any human contact, any human impact on any of this property. They just want to leave it the way that it is. Well, the result is if you don't manage the gifts that God has given you, given the resources, don't manage the resources that we have, one of the bad results of your bad decisions and your bad policies is wildfires. And now the Elk Fire, last I checked, they only had a little bit over 30% containment on it. That thing's going to keep burning until there's a rainstorm or a giant snowstorm or whenever God decides to put it out. Now, thankfully, I looked at the weather this morning, and it said that there's a 100% chance of snow in the Sheridan area. So we'll hopefully we see some snow and, we don't have to deal with these wildfires anymore. But let's get to the article here. And I quote, United States Representative Harriet Hageman grew up in an old homestead house near McGinnis Pass. It's over in Fort Laramie. Located about 8 miles north of Guernsey, the century-old home burned down during the Pleasantville fire. Wyoming's lone member of Congress said she's heartbroken over the devastating wildfires that have burned more than 600,000 acres across the Cowboy state this fire season. That includes, her family ranch over in Hartville. Now, with the volatile and obstinate elk and pack trail fires that are making national headlines, having burned 180,000 acres combined, Harriet Hageman said her sympathy for residents and landowners who have been wiped out is matched by another emotion. Quote, it's been a rough year for Wyoming, and everybody knows that, she told Cowboy State Daily in a Wednesday phone interview. My own family has been affected by that at our home in Hartville. It's been devastating to watch and this play out. Now, that's because the wildfires are now threatening a number of rural Wyoming towns, ranches, subdivisions that could have been stopped more than 20 years ago. And what she's alluding to is the roadless rule, a 23-year-old rule pushed by former President Bill Clinton. He's the culprit of this entire thing. And for those asking why the United States Forest Service and other agencies aren't out clearing the huge volume of dense undergrowth that's now exploding across Wyoming and the West, the answer is they can't, Hageman said. In 2021, the roadless rule that Clinton championed declared 58 million acres of federal public forest land basically inaccessible to motor vehicles and proper management. Quote, this lack of forest management and the bad policies coming out of Washington, D.C., she said, that's what's creating this environment for the wildfires. The scope, the intensity, and the outcome and the impact of these fires is absolutely caused by the failure of the U.S. Forest Service to properly manage these resources. That's because their hands are tied by federal rules. Stupid federal rules. That's my insert on that. Quote, I'm not implying that the people in Wyoming are the ones causing these problems, Hageman said. I've been up there on the ranch, and those hot spots that come in and fought that fire were absolutely brilliant. Thank God we have them. But they're fighting a losing battle, my friends. You have a federal government that is absolutely insistent on reducing the amount of human impact on all federal lands, Forest Service, BLM, you name it. And really what they're doing is creating a giant tinderbox. And it's the idiocy of environmentalists thinking that they can preserve things and keep them as they are, and that no human impact whatsoever is going to create a better forest, better environment. But the truth, that couldn't be further from the truth, my friends. Because it's the difference between conservation and preservation. When conservatives say conservation, what we mean is conserving what we have. That is managing it, making sure that it's going to be there for generations to come. And to do that, you have to do things like log and hunt. And let me give you a great example. Hunting, for example. Every species, and it doesn't matter what species it is, when the population density reaches a certain point, you always see some sort of disease or sickness or some sort of ailment happen in the animal population, and it happens across all species. In fish, it's called whirling disease. It's a really weird one that the fish swim in circles and then eventually they die. There's chronic wasting disease in ungulates. There's all sorts of them. So in any population, when the density goes up and the environment can't support them, well, what you see is widespread disease. And it happens with humans too. The more you pack people in, the easier it is to spread disease and sickness. So the idea is to manage the things that God gave us, the environment, the populations, the resources that we have, in a responsible way so that those things are there for forever. Now, contrast that with preservation. Preservation is the idea of not allowing any human contact whatsoever, no human impact. Leave things exactly as they are. You can't get a truck up in there to log. You can't get a piece of equipment. Nope. We have to preserve it. Well, the result in animals is death. And in the Forest Service or the forest areas, it's fires, it's destruction. And those fires tend to get out of control, like the elk fire. That thing got burning so hot that there was nothing that was going to stop it. In fact, the only thing that is going to stop it is a giant snowstorm. Hopefully it hits. I'm not looking forward to driving in a foot of snow, but I'll take that any day over a raging wildfire. And all of this is due to what the federal government has been doing and their no-touch policies. They're absolutely misguided. And, it's always Democrats that do this. They come up with this great idea. Oh, look at how beautiful things are. We have to preserve this for forever. And that means you can't touch it. You can't manage it or anything. And in result, it ends up being a burned up piece of charcoal. Finishing the article, Hageman said that she doesn't believe the wild claims people are throwing about these fires. Like the Forest Service started the elk fire on purpose to get access to rare earth minerals. Yeah, I don't believe that either. I think it's pretty clear it was a lightning strike. Where the Cowboy State Politics studio is at, I could watch the lightning storm. And I watched the lightning bolts come down right outside the window. And as dry as it is, I was just praying that fire didn't start. And, it did. But you could watch it happen. What she does understand is that claims like those are the result of a dishonest federal government that lies to people repeatedly, and that our own government has lost an enormous amount of trust. This is what happens when you have a government that lies to you, Hageman said. This administration has been hell-bent on making sure they can control every aspect of our lives. Do I think these fires were started by the Forest Service? No. But our Forest Service personnel here in Wyoming are working diligently, and she's absolutely right about that. So anyway, all of these fires this summer, they are the result of the bad policies of the current administration and previous Democrat administrations. As it relates to Representative Hageman, tomorrow I'm interviewing her at 11:30, and I'll play that interview on Monday's edition of Cowboy State Politics Live, and you'll hear it first on the Cowboy State Politics podcast that'll be published Saturday. So you don't want to miss that. We haven't talked to Representative Hageman in a while, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now, I was going to start out the program with this, and I got a little sidetracked with celebrating the absolutely incredible performance of Cowboy State Politics. But as you know, I've been following the morning show on the Cowpie. It's fascinating to watch them try to run circles around themselves, competing with the power of Cowboy State Politics. But now the Cowpie is claiming that they don't have any agenda at all, that they continually try to shoot the middle on things. And, they're just the best news source. Here's Wendy Core, their news person. She reads the morning news, and she was being interviewed by Jake on the morning show. Take a listen to this.
And I know that people paint the media with this broad brush as all media, there's an agenda. And I don't know how to explain to people that there's just no agenda. It's just about telling the stories that matter, the things that are important to tell, whether it's the story of a ghost ship, running down the North Platte River that Jackie talked about last week, or whether it's a story about, the political movement that's happening in the state right now.
Yeah, they have no agenda whatsoever. That's why you can't find a single article that's critical of any of the redcoats. No, it's because they don't have an agenda. That's why every single article that's written about the Freedom Caucus or the conservatives more broadly is absolutely critical. Well, they say all sorts of mean and nasty things about conservatives, but when it comes to one of their liberal buddies, oh well, then it's 100% positive coverage. It's absolutely incredible, my friends. And they claim that they're straight down the middle, that they're not biased in any way, but the truth is they absolutely are. And it is plain for everybody to see. There's no question that they have an agenda. And it wasn't that long ago that I read you the story of how a conservative group in the state looked at 500 and I think it was 62 or 67 articles in the Cowboy and found that if you are of the group that the owner of the Cowboy, B. Wayne Hughes, gave money to during the election, well, then you will get 100% positive coverage. But if you happen to be a conservative, there is a 400% more likelihood that you will have negative coverage. The Cowboy absolutely has an agenda, and for them to claim that they don't is absolute bullcrap. But, you shouldn't really you shouldn't really expect anything less from them because they are a left-wing media source. In fact, the guy that writes their political stuff, their political opinion page, Trotsky Wolfson, he originally, the first time he voted in Wyoming, he was a Democrat. In fact, he registered as a Democrat. And then after the 2018 election, he ended up crossing over into the Republican Party, and he's still a Republican. If you just read Trotsky's writing, there is no way that guy is Republican, nor is he conservative. So the Cowboy, no matter what they say, they absolutely have an agenda, and there's no getting around it. Well, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, I'll open up the phone lines. If anybody wants to talk on the program, we'll go ahead and do that. But first, an absolutely outrageous profit timeout. And, anytime you have an agenda in a media source, you're not getting fair and balanced news. You can't even really trust it. At least on Cowboy State Politics, we're honest about who we are, who I am. Yep. I have an agenda, but I tell you the truth, and I back it up, which is something the Cowboy never does. You can listen to Cowboy State Politics live every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. on the Independence Network. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Cowboy State Politics is sponsored by FreedomGoldUSA.com. They are the working man's gold company. The economy is in turmoil. The stock market pretty much is out of control, and you never know what's going to happen with your finances or your income. One way that you can shore up everything is by investing in gold and silver. Go to freedomgoldusa.com/David for a free interview to discuss your options and find out if gold or silver is right for you. One more time, that's freedomgoldusa.com/David. Welcome back to the program, my friends. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics, live behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone. documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. That's right, my friends. That's a record that the mainstream media shouldn't even try to come close to, because quite frankly, they can't. 307-257, or excuse me, 307-374-8989 if you want to be part of the program. 307-374-8989. The phone lines are open if you want to be part of the conversation today. And tomorrow, we're going to be having an open line Friday. I'm going to open up the phone lines at the very beginning of the show, and we'll just take whatever calls come, and it's all on you, my friends. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever stories are important to you, we're going to do that all day tomorrow, open line Friday. So, like I said, phone lines are open, 307-374-8989 if you want to be part of the broadcast today. Shocker, the Supreme Court of the United States has a higher approval rating after the Dobbs decision, while trust in the media plummets. Now, I don't think that hardly anybody trusts the mainstream Wyoming press or national press, and that's why independent media sources like Cowboy State Politics are doing so well. Simply because, we present an alternate view that's not corporatized, that doesn't have big, gigantic sponsors like the Wyoming caucus. And that one there should tell you everything you need to know about the mainstream media. In the last election, the Wyoming caucus paid the Cowboy State Daily, $50,000 for advertising. Think about that. $50,000 is what the Wyoming caucus paid to the Cowboy State Daily. Just an incredible amount of money. So, it is bought and paid for, and there is a big reason why Leo Trotsky Wolfson and the rest of the Cowpie never wrote a single article that was critical of any of the Redcoats. Well, that same thing applies nationally. And now the Supreme Court, no matter what the mainstream media or politicians say, has a higher approval rating than the rest of the media or Congress, for that matter. So when Chuck Schumer said, let's see if I can find it, Schumer was absolutely wrong when he said this. You remember this soundbite?
And they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
So the left has a media. The left has a narrative that, the entire country is pissed off about the repeal of Roe v. Wade. They are so angry with the Dobbs decision that, they don't trust the Supreme Court. Well, the numbers are in, and actually people do. From the Federalist, and I quote, Americans' trust in mass media hit a new low again in Gallup's annual survey on confidence in the press, while faith in the Supreme Court inched upward. Gallup reported the results of the group's latest poll on trust in the news media on Monday. The poll found that just 31% of Americans maintain a, quote, great deal or fair amount of confidence in newspapers, television networks, and radio to report on events, quote, fully, accurately, and fairly. The number of Americans reporting a great deal or fair amount of trust in the media has not increased in Gallup's survey since 2018, when, at 45%, the press enjoyed its highest level of confidence since 2009. Today, 36% of those surveyed reported no confidence in the media, while 33% said their level of trust could be described as not very much. Americans' opinions of the Supreme Court, on the other hand, have begun to improve following the drop and subsequent plateau in support of 2021 to 2023, when the high bench faced unprecedented attacks from Democrats politicizing controversial decisions. As of September, 44% of Americans approved of the way the Supreme Court is handling its job. According to Gallup, 51%, or roughly half, disapprove, representing a 7-point drop from the same month in the previous 2 years, after justices overturned the abortion precedent established by Roe v. Wade. The High Court currently has a higher approval rating now than before the Dobbs decision. So that's absolutely incredible, my friends, that even though the Democrats went after the Supreme Court for numerous things, its approval rating has still gone up. And it just goes to show you that Americans are much more savvy than the media makes them out to be, than Democrats make them out to be. See, the Dobbs decision didn't outlaw abortion. It didn't outlaw it at all. Really, what it did was send the decision concerning abortion back to the states, and that's where it should have been from the very beginning. There's nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have a right to kill a baby. In fact, it doesn't say that you have a right to kill any innocent human being, including a baby. And so, according to the 10th Amendment, what is not specifically listed in the Constitution is up to the states, and abortion is one of those. So anyway, it's incredible, my friends, that the media the American people have such a low opinion of the media. But it just goes to show you, man, when you lie to somebody over and over and over, of course, they're not going to trust you. And that's what the mainstream media does. Well, we've got roughly 20 days until the general election. And you're about to see, if you haven't already, a bunch of ads just flying around everywhere. And the Trump campaign has released a new ad, and I'll be surprised if you haven't heard this one before or seen it on social media or YouTube or on the internet. But take a listen to the new Trump ad, and then we're going to talk about it.
A flood of illegals, skyrocketing prices, global chaos, and Kamala wouldn't change a thing.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Nothing will change with Kamala. More weakness, more war, more welfare for illegals, and even more taxes. Only President Trump cut middle-class taxes, and only President Trump will do it again.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
That is probably the best message that the Trump campaign could use in the follow-up to the election. That Kamala Harris has repeatedly said she would not change a thing from the Biden administration. Now, granted, she has flip-flopped on just about everything. And now, I mean, she's worse than John Kerry, right? I voted against the bill before I voted for the bill, or whatever the heck he said. But Kamala Harris has said in repeated interviews that she wouldn't change a thing. In fact, she was on Stephen Colbert the other night, and he asked her, the very first question out of the box was, would you change a thing? Now, I put together a little montage for you. I had a little bit of fun with it, but here is Kamala Harris's answer to Stephen Colbert's question. Here we go.
A lot of people, especially independent voters, really want this to be a change election, and that they tend to break for you in terms of thinking about change. You are a member of the present administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
No kidding.
And so when we think about the significance of what this next generation of leadership looks like, were I to be elected president.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do.
It is about, frankly, I love the American people, and I believe in our country. I love that it is our character and nature to be an ambitious people. We have aspirations.
Still
we have
not
dreams.
Answering the question.
We have incredible work ethic, and she was a small business owner. So as a child, I grew up knowing that a small business owner is someone who is a leader in the community, hires locally, trains locally, builds. My plan includes extending a tax deduction for startup small businesses to $50,000 instead of what currently it is at $5,000, because nobody in 2024 can start up a small business with $5,000.
Okay, all right. I can hardly take it. I
believe in it.
I've had enough. I can't take it anymore, my friends. She doesn't have any answers to any questions. In fact, the only answer she could give was, well, I grew up in a middle-class family. I know the middle class. And that is her only answer. So when Stephen Colbert says, hey, what would you do different than the Biden administration? Kamala Harris doesn't really have an answer. In fact, during her interview with Brett Baier, I think that one aired yesterday. I don't. Did you hear that? I mean, did you hear any pieces of that on the radio or on TV last night? It was absolutely something to listen to. We'll get into that after we take another brief time out. But you know, the only thing she tried to do in that interview with Brett Baier, who I consider to be like the consummate journalist, was to filibuster every question. That's the only way that she could handle Brett Baier, is to just continually talk and try to shut him down, try to prevent him from asking another question. Well, that's what Democrats do. They avoid everything. More in a minute. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but it's hunting season. And one thing that you can be absolutely certain of is while you're tromping around in the boonies, at some point, it's going to snow. A lot. And you definitely want to make sure that you keep your feet nice and toasty warm. The best way that you can do that is to order a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the warmest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Wyoming is one of the most sought-after places to live. There's a lot of people that want to move to our great state. And if you're thinking about selling your house to one of them, you need a real estate agent that you can trust. That agent is Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She's lived in Jackson for almost 20 years and has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market. Last year, she sold almost $25 million worth of property. So if you're thinking of buying or selling, give Rebecca a call. Her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Watch out. Cowboy state politics is only going to get stronger. 300,000 downloads and counting from every county in this state to every state in this nation. It's Cowboy State Politics. Welcome back to the program, my friends. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics Live. 307-374-8989. That's 307-374-8989. If you want to be part of the broadcast, go ahead and give me a call. Whatever's on your mind, we'll talk about it. It's amazing to absolutely have the ability to take calls on the air. I did it for the first time yesterday and got one call. So, hey, that's a win in my book. It couldn't have gone better. And so, yeah, from here on out, you know, we got the ability to take calls. And so this week, I'm kind of leaving it open and up to you. If you want to call in and talk on the program, please do. Again, 307-374-8989. So Kamala Harris did an interview with Brett Baier. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. Maybe it just aired yesterday. But the interview was combative, to say the least. And the only way that Kamala Harris was going to get through that is to just try to filibuster every single thing, every single question that Brett Baier asked her, because, you know, the Democrats, they cannot handle fair questioning, because most of what they do all the time is lie. And when you have a journalist, a learned journalist in front of you, they're not going to allow you to lie. Well, here is one of the very first questions, and interesting that Stephen Colbert led with this question also. But here's one of the very first questions that Brett Baier asked her.
You're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership.
A new generation of leadership. And she wouldn't change a thing. Now, wait a minute. We just heard just a second ago this.
A flood of illegals, skyrocketing prices, global chaos, and Kamala wouldn't change a thing.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Nothing will change with
Kamala Harris. And this is just another one of her flip-flops, right? Would you change a thing? Nope. I wouldn't change a darned thing. And you know, it's amazing to me how absolutely stupid they think that you are, that they can go back and forth, that they can lie, that they can continue to not to tell you the truth, and you will just buy it. But that's the only way, that's the only thing the Democrats have. And it's absolutely incredible, my friends, that the Democrats, wow, she says she's not going to be a continuation of Joe Biden when we know that that's actually what's going to happen. Well, let's go ahead and take a call, and we'll take a call. Maybe we'll take another one, and then we'll continue on with the broadcast. Welcome to Cowboy State Politics. How's it going today?
Wonderful. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Well, this is the lovely Christine, and I just thought I would call in and congratulate you on 300,000 downloads.
Well, thank you, my dear. Incredible that I get to talk to you on the live program.
Right. This is fun.
It is. It's pretty
I think
cool.
Everybody should take a jab at this.
I think they should too. In fact, that's what I was saying earlier is I think I'm just going to kind of leave this thing open, and whomever wants to call in and talk, we'll just go to it.
Well, congratulations, and I hope that you get a live caller.
Oh, thank you very much, my dear. Have an awesome day.
I will.
All right. Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye. See, how cool is that? I get to talk to my lovely wife on the air. Well, she's absolutely right. If you want to talk on the program, if you've got something on your mind, go ahead and give me a call. It's 374-8989. That's 374-8989. So back to the Brett Baer interview. And again, the only thing that Kamala Harris could do was be absolutely combative in it. And she says, I represent a new generation of leadership, which she really doesn't. Kamala Harris is a Marxist. In fact, she's farther left than Bernie Sanders. And, there's lots of evidence to prove that. But to the article, and I quote, Vice President Kamala Harris distanced herself from President Joe Biden in a combative and at times tense interview with Fox News on Wednesday, her first with the conservative-leaning network. Quote, my presidency would not be a continuation of the Joe Biden presidency. Like every new president, okay, blah, 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 you heard the soundbite. Now, Harris has vowed to appoint a Republican to her cabinet, probably Liz Cheney, if she's elected president in November, and pledged to welcome bipartisan input into her policies. Earlier in the day, she appeared with dozens of anti-Donald Trump Republicans at an event in Pennsylvania to highlight GOP support for her campaign. Of course, there's a bunch of never-Trumpers that are going to hang around with Kamala Harris. And just think about this just for a second. So if you're a Republican and you know for a fact that Kamala Harris is a Marxist, why would you support her? Well, there's only one logical answer to that, my friends, and that's that you're not really a Republican. You are a redcoat. And, this is exactly the same thing that we see in Wyoming, or maybe Wyoming is a reflection of what's happening nationally. But there are a ton of people that they support every liberal policy, and the only reason that they've hung an R at the end of their name is so that they can get elected. And that's exactly what's happened with any of these people in the GOP that are supporting Kamala Harris. As Harris tried to highlight her support for the bipartisan border bill, which, by the way, was not really all that bipartisan. It was a crappy bill that would have allowed millions of people, illegal aliens, into this country. border bill, and she's claimed that Republicans blocked it from passage earlier this year. The truth is that 6 Democrats voted against that bill, and that was the reason that it died. The Democrats pretty much have a solid majority in the Senate. They only need 1 or 2 votes from the Republicans to push anything through. So when 6 Democrats vote against your legislation, it's not the Republicans that killed it. It's not Donald Trump. It's the Democrats. But this is a lie that Kamala Harris and everybody on the Democratic side has been pushing for a really long time. Well, it was Trump that killed that bill. Trump called all the Republicans and absolutely tanked that bill. Well, when Bear cut her off and repeated the question, here was Harris's reply, quote, "Let me finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you, I was beginning to answer. May I finish responding? You have to let me finish." No, he doesn't have to let you finish. And if it were my interview, I would just tell her, either you're going to answer the question, or I'll just mute your microphone and move on. Or we'll just end the interview right now, and we'll just let everybody know that you refuse to answer any questions. Now, but Bret Baier is a lot more diplomatic, and I appreciate the position that he's in. He has Kamala Harris in front of him, and it's probably the only opportunity he's going to get. So he's got to kind of play her a little bit with kid gloves to keep her from storming off. So despite Baier's best efforts to draw some blood, Harris held her own. And this article, by the way, I forgot to tell you, this is from the Huffington Post. So that the HuffPo is being at all critical of Kamala Harris tells you exactly how bad that interview went for her. The vice president said she opposed decriminalizing border crossings and said she would follow the law regarding the use of taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries. She also got in many attacks on Trump, railed about his morals and character, and calling him unfit and unstable to return to the Oval Office. The truth is, if you listen to a lot of the exchanges from that interview, and you don't even have to listen to the entire thing, what you'll get is her avoiding just about every question that she could and not answering anything because she doesn't have any substantive answers. As I have played for you numerous times on the program, it is just, I was born in a middle-class family. I understand a middle-class family. And that's all she has. Just platitudes and talking points. And anytime she's asked a serious question, she either laughs or goes back to those platitudes. But one thing that she did do during an interview with this guy named Charlemagne, he calls himself Charlemagne the God, but I don't foresee him as a god, and frankly, I think it's kind of blasphemous. But anyway, she was doing an interview with this Charlemagne character, and she had her own back in chains moment. Now, you remember when Joe Biden was, I think he was campaigning for Barack Obama, and he had this horrible, I guess you could call it gaffe, but I think he meant to say it. But this is what he said a couple of years ago. Take a listen. I'm sure you'll remember it.
Could you please respond to Trump's claim that he's going to use the alien...
Well, hold on. That was the wrong one here. Let's see here. We need Biden back in chains. Here we go.
Could you please respond to Trump's claim...
Well, I guess I've got the wrong one. But anyway, so at a campaign event, Joe Biden said, they're going to put you all back in chains. You remember that one? Well, Kamala Harris pretty much had her own back in chains moment. And I believe that's the soundbite that I thought was Joe Biden. So let me go ahead and let that one continue. And I'm pretty sure that's the one I want you to hear.
Could you please respond to Trump's claim that he's going to use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to round up immigrants if he wins the election? This law was last used to put Asian Americans in internment camps during World War II, and I have a sneaking suspicion that if Trump wins, he's going to use this law to put anyone that doesn't look white in camps, and I'm scared.
Yeah, so you've hit on a really important point and expressed it, I think, so well, which is he is achieving his intended effect to make you scared. He is running full time on a campaign that is about instilling fear.
There you go. So he's running on a full campaign to put people in camps and to round up anybody that's not white. Kamala Harris will say anything to be elected president, but fortunately, none of it is going to work because we all realize exactly who she is. a Marxist that doesn't have any plans. She doesn't have any qualifications. The only thing she's going to do is plunge this country deeper than it already is. Back in a minute. You are listening to Cowboy State Politics Live on the Independence Network. You're not going to find a selection of better news, entertainment, and commentary than right here on the Independence Network, with great voices like Joey Carenti from Just Blame Joey, Ken Pendergraft from The Ramble Room, Tom Kelly from Wide Right Turn, and the lovely Christine from The Hair Affair. And of course, my program, Cowboy State Politics, Wyoming's most listened to political program. Also, don't forget to check out the articles section at the website, independencenetwork.us. It's loaded with op-eds, commentary, and news from all around the Cowboy State. You can listen to the Cowboy State Politics podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest place is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. That way, if your name is Joe Biden and you can't remember if you had your pudding today, well, I probably can't help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, my friends. David Iverson, Cowboy State Politics, Wyoming's most listened to podcast. 300,000 downloads. Amazing by any measure, my friends. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to the phones. Welcome to Cowboy State Politics. Who am I talking to?
Jerry Jackson from Rock Springs, Wyoming.
Hey, Jerry, welcome back to the show. What's happening today?
Well, first, I wanted to congratulate you on your 300,000 downloads.
Well, thank you. It's a big number for me. I'm super, super proud. And, you know, honestly, this has been a big week. I'm pretty stoked to find out what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm very happy because you don't realize how important the information you put out is. If it hadn't have been for you, and there's a group I have to talk about too a little bit, and that was Bikers for Trump. Bikers for Trump Wyoming. They exposed so much and gave the proof that Cheney was not good for Wyoming, was not good for America, and definitely was not a Republican.
Oh, that's for sure. And there's, you know, if there's one group that is far and above, way more conservative than any other, it's bikers. You can pretty much bet on it. In fact, I've never met a liberal biker, and I've been around a lot of them, but it's they're an amazing group, and they did a lot of work for Donald Trump for sure.
They sure did. They did a lot of work for Wyoming. Like I say, they helped put out. Well, I think that's where I found out about your program. I'm not positive, but I think this is where I first listened to you.
Well, I would expect nothing less. Unfortunately, my bike is right in the shop right now, so we're working on getting it fixed. It's been kind of a kind of a long process all summer, but pretty soon I'll be back on the road and be running into some of the Bikers for Trump folks.
Well, again, I just wanted to congratulate you and thank you for all the information that helped expose what Cheney really was. And I think she's worse than Harris myself.
Oh, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff about Liz Cheney, and I'm glad whatever small part I could play in that. I had a lot of fun exposing who she is and who she's in bed with. And it's a really, really scary list. But I appreciate the call, Jerry. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thank you. And God bless our republic.
Yes, sir. God bless our republic. All right. If you want to be part of the program, 374-8989. We've still got about 10 minutes left in the show. If you want to, if you got something on your mind and you want to talk about it, go ahead and give me a call, 374-8989. Now, Trump just did another town hall with Univision, and, that is the Latino station. And, it's, when you're doing interviews that some of them are going to be friendly and some of them are just going to be combative from the very beginning. And Univision, they're right in line with the rest of the media outlets. But this one comes from, I think it's from the New York Post. Quote, former President Donald Trump on Wednesday fielded numerous questions related to immigration during a town hall with Latino voters on Univision, doubling down on his strict border policies with a group heavily affected by the immigration surge. Latino voters probed him over his efforts to tank a bipartisan border bill. Again, it's that dumb border bill that the only thing it would have done would be to allow millions of illegal aliens into the country, and it wasn't bipartisan. It was a bunch of redcoats that came up with that thing, and there was no question that it was absolutely not going to help the border situation at all. In fact, it was going to exacerbate all of the problems on the border. Addressing the consequences of labor, Trump cited the need to bring in foreign laborers, but highlighted the influx of criminals under the current system. Quote, we have to have a lot of people come into our country. We just want them to come in here legally through a system because they've released hundreds of thousands of people that are murderers, drug dealers, terrorists. They're coming in totally, he said. Nobody knows who they are, where they come from, and the people that are most against it are the Hispanic people. And he's absolutely right. There are a great number of criminals that have come into this country. In fact, there was an election terror plot that was sponsored by ISIS-K. That's what I said. ISIS-K, that was foiled just last week. And that guy came in here through the broken immigration system, and the Harris administration just kind of, waved him on through. An ISIS-K member who eventually set up a terror plot that was thankfully foiled. But the whole point is the Harris administration just willingly let these people in. When pressed on the issue of Springfield, Ohio, and the rumors of migrants eating pets, Trump said, quote, he was just saying what was reported and pointed to the consequences of adding 30,000 people to a population of 30,000. Quote, you have a city of 52,000 people, and they've added almost 30,000 immigrants into the city. If you were a person that lived there, if you lived in Springfield, Ohio, and all of a sudden you couldn't get into a hospital and you couldn't get your kids into school, you wouldn't be able to buy groceries. You could no longer pay the rent because the government's paying rent, he said. Any of that, if any of that happened, it would be a disaster for you and you wouldn't be happy. We want to make our people safe and secure. We want to make them happy. But Springfield, Ohio, that is a perfect example. And he's absolutely right. Anytime you add a large population of immigrants, one, they don't have any legal papers, so how are they going to get a job? Two, they're going to take up valuable resources that the community already has. Shelters, public assistance, you name it, hospitals. 30,000 people. Let's see here. Just to put that into context, right? The city of Sheridan is a little over 20,000 people-ish, right? So if you were to add 30,000 people here, that would overwhelm everything, every piece of infrastructure we have here. And that's essentially the same thing that's happened with Springfield, Ohio. And the whole migrants eating pets thing, I absolutely saw the news reports myself. I couldn't hardly believe it when I first read it. But Trump was just repeating what was reported in the media. And now, granted, probably a dumb decision to mention that at the debate, but it's absolutely the truth. And when it comes to debates, you have to kind of pick your battles, so to speak. And, some things, while they might be true, they might be kind of problematic. And so you sort of pick and choose what you're going to use at a debate. And, Trump, he just doesn't have a filter in any of these things. And when something concerns him, he's just going to let it out. And that's exactly what happened there. Well, there's another thing and we're seeing, and the reason I saved this for last is this is something that is kind of happening in Casper. But the Biden administration sent a pro-life mom to prison for over 40 months over violating a law protecting access to abortion clinics. The law that the article is referring to is called the FACE Act. It's called the Access to Care Facilities or something, but basically it says that everybody has to have unencumbered access to an abortion clinic. Imagine that. We have a law that says you can't be questioned or you can't be stopped from killing your baby. But anyway, so there was this mom who basically all she was doing was praying and singing hymns, and judge is going to slap her in prison for 3 years. From The Blaze, and I quote, "A pro-life mom has reported to prison after being convicted of violating a law protecting access to abortion clinics. 33-year-old Bevelyn Williams was sentenced in July to 41 months in prison for violating the Freedom of Access to Clinics Act," there you go, the FACE Act, "over several instances during which she prevented patients from entering abortion clinics. She was convicted of misdemeanor criminal trespass." Think about that. She was sent to prison over a misdemeanor charge. It's not even a felony, it's a misdemeanor. Quote, "Biden's Department of Justice has brazenly weaponized the FACE Act against normal, everyday Americans across the political spectrum simply because they are pro-life. The Biden-Harris administration has made my," quote, "The Biden administration has made my husband a single father today," wrote Williams on the X platform Wednesday. "I am on my way to turn myself into federal prison, where I am scheduled to serve 3 years for unlawful assembly." A statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office said that Williams repeatedly intimidated and interfered with individuals seeking and providing critical reproductive health services. I love that phrase, reproductive health services, by use of physical force and threats of violence against the staff. They cited an incident in 2020 where Williams injured the hand of a clinic volunteer and also a live stream she posted during which she said she would terrorize the clinic. Conservatives have accused Democrats, and especially the Biden administration, of using the FACE Act to target pro-life and Christian activists for unjust prosecution and imprisonment. Quote, "The Biden DOJ has weaponized this constitutionally suspect law against pro-life sidewalk counselors while failing to protect pregnancy centers and churches from violent attacks. Free Americans should never live in fear of their government targeting them because of their beliefs," Representative Chip Roy of Texas said. Yet, Biden's Department of Justice has brazenly weaponized the FACE Act against normal, everyday Americans across the political spectrum. Okay, now how does this relate to Wyoming? Yesterday on the program, on the morning show, Joey and I went through a story of how a number of pro-life demonstrators were outside of the baby butchery shop down there in Casper, the abortion clinic. And there have been several instances where people entering the clinic have claimed that they're being harassed when entering the abortion facility. And this is an obvious allusion to the FACE Act. It's trying to draw attention to something that hasn't happened. Now, in truth, and there are videos to prove this, that all of the demonstration, I shouldn't say all, I should say most of the demonstrations outside the Casper abortion clinic are individuals praying, holding signs, and handing out flowers. Now, the truth is, they are the ones that have been harassed. They've been spit on, shouted down. It's been incredible. Well, there was a whole group of them that showed up at the Casper City Council meeting a couple of days ago and tried to tell the city council, hey, we're not the ones that are harassing anybody. And, just because we believe in the sanctity of life doesn't give anybody the right to harass us. Well, anyway, I'll keep following that and other stories. We've come to the end of another busy broadcast day on the program, an incredible show. thank you for joining, and thank you for the 300,000 downloads of Cowboy State Politics. We will continue on, and I'm never going to stop so long as I can sit behind this microphone. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics.